riffing a couple of moves and
Insert the end of the steering column 21B between the two tabs on the steering shaft 21A. And secure it with an M screw. Retrieve the survival cell assembly from the previous issue and place the steering shaft lower front support 21D over the highlighted holes in the survival cell 7A. Place the steering column 21B and the steering shaft 21A on the steering shaft lower front support 21D and the steering shaft lower rear support 20D, paying attention to the orientation of the parts. Place the steering shaft upper front support 21C on the steering shaft lower front support 21D. Secure both supports with 2 of 8 screws. Place the steering shaft upper rear support 21E on the steering shaft lower rear support 20D. Secure both supports with 2 of 8 screws. Insert the front right lower reinforcement arm 22B into the slot in the steering knuckle 22D. Place the end of the front right lower reinforcement arm 22B between the tabs on the front right lower suspension arm support 22C. And secure them with C screw. Insert the tab on the front right lower suspension arm 22A into the slot in the steering knuckle 22D. Attach the front right lower suspension arm 22A to the front right lower suspension arm support 22C with C-screw. Align the highlighted holes in the front right lower suspension arm support 22C with the holes on the inside of the steering knuckle 22D and fasten the assembly with 2A screws. Insert the inner part of the hub 23G into the central hole in the front right hub support 23E. Retrieve the front right lower suspension arm assembly from the previous issue. Secure the front right hub support 23E to the inner side of the steering knuckle 22D with 2B screws. Insert one end of the brake disc ventilation grill 23C into the highlighted slot on the inner brake disc 23B. Then, wrap the ventilation grill around the entire contour of the brake disc and insert the other end into the same slot on the disc. See detail image. Connect the outer brake disc 23C to the central brake disc 23A. Insert the longest tab on the end of the front right upper reinforcement arm 24B into the highlighted slot on the steering knuckle 22D. Place the end of the front right upper suspension arm 24A between the steering knuckle 22D and the front right hub support 23E. Secure the front right upper suspension arm 24A and the front right upper reinforcement arm 24B with D-screw in the front right hub support 23E. Retrieve the front right suspension assembly from issue 24. Insert the fairing air intake 25A into the highlighted hole in the steering knuckle 22D. Place the brake disc fairing 25B on the inside of the steering knuckle 22D. And secure it with 2A screws. Retrieve the brake disc parts from issue 23. Place the front right brake plate 23F on the front right hub support 23E. Place the inner brake disc 23B and the brake disc ventilation grill 23D on the front right brake plate 23F. Place the central brake disc 23A onto the inner brake disc 23B, so that the pivots of the front brake plate 23F are inserted into the holes in the central brake disc 23A. Insert the outer part of the hub 25C into the highlighted holes in the center of central brake disc 23A. Retrieve the survival cell assembly from issue 21. Insert the front right lower suspension arm 22A, front right upper suspension arm 24A, and front right upper reinforcement arm 24B into the highlighted slots in the survival cell inner front panel 7A and the front structure of the survival cell 7B. Note that the other front right lower suspension arm 22A is positioned at the bottom. Secure the front right upper reinforcement arm 24B with an A screw. The front right lower suspension arm 22A with C screw. And the front right upper suspension arm 24A with 2 E screws. Place the steering rack 25D under the front right and left reinforcement arms 22B and 4F. Secure the rack at the top with 2 end screws. Retrieve the suspension assembly from issue 25. Connect the inner cover of the front right brake disc 26B to the 2-hole pivots on the steering knuckle 22D. Place the outer cover of the front right brake disc 26C on the inner cover 26B. Finally, turn the assembly over and insert the 2 pins on the front right brake caliper 26A into the highlighted holes on the steering knuckle 22D.